All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to step right into the ancient temple courtyard to try and solve what is, well, a pretty brilliant intellectual mystery. In the ancient temple, every single inch mattered. I mean, really mattered. So what happens when that holy ground becomes a legal puzzle? Let's dive into this because it all comes down to a fundamental rule about sacredness and space. Okay, so to really get this puzzle, first we need to understand the basic layout. And the stakes here were incredibly high. We're talking about ancient rituals, where the rules were super precise. I mean, one tiny mistake, and the whole thing could be invalidated. So here's the rule, and it's a strict one. For the most sacred offerings, location is everything. The law is crystal clear. They have to be, absolutely have to be, slaughtered in the northern section of the temple courtyard. Anywhere else? Nope. The offering is totally invalid. But, and here's where it gets interesting, a dispute pops up. What if the offering is done not on the ground, but on top of the altar itself? This kicks off a really fascinating legal debate. On one side, you have Rabbi Yossi, who says, totally fine, it's valid, just as if it were done in the north. But then you have his colleague, Rabbi Yosei, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, and he's got a different take. He says, hold on, it depends. Only the northern half of the altar actually counts. So how do you solve a contradiction like that? Well, the Gemara, which is this huge, brilliant commentary on Jewish law, it starts its investigation by proposing a really straightforward physical explanation, a simple geographic solution, basically. The great sage Rabbi Yochanan jumps in with a simple solution for Rabbi Yossi's position. He says, look, the reason the offering is valid is simple geography. The entire altar, it's physically located in the northern part of the courtyard. End of story. And you gotta admit, that's a pretty clean solution. If the whole altar is in the north, well, then of course any offering on it is valid. This neatly explains Rabbi Yossi's view. Problem solved, right? Case closed? Well, not so fast. In Talmudic analysis, simple answers never get off that easy. They're always pressure tested. And sure enough, another brilliant sage, a guy named Rabbi Zera, he immediately spots a huge flaw in this whole theory. Rabbi Zera asks this really sharp question. He says, okay, fine, let's say the debate is about physical location. If we apply that same logic to the other guy's opinion, what does that imply? What does that force Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, to believe about where the altar is? And this is where the whole thing just unravels. Let's walk through Rabbi Zera's challenge. So, premise one, assume the debate is all about physical location. Okay. That would imply that the other rabbi, Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Yehuda, he must believe the altar is literally split, half in the north, half in the south. But, and here's the contradiction, we know he also says that slaughtering on the ground right next to that northern half is invalid. And that just doesn't make any sense. If that area were really in the north, the ground next to it should be valid. So, boom, the logic collapses. So the first theory just completely collapses. The puzzle is obviously way deeper than just geography. The easy answer just doesn't work, right? It can't explain both sides of the argument. And that means we have to dig for a much more profound explanation. The real reason for this whole disagreement has to be something else entirely. And this is where we get to the real aha moment. It turns out this whole dispute, it isn't about maps or physical space at all. No. The real source of the disagreement is all about how you decode a single verse from the Bible. And this is the verse right here. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and you shall slaughter upon it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings. The entire debate, literally the whole thing, hangs on how you read that little word and in burnt offerings and your peace offerings. It's amazing, really. This shows how two brilliant minds can look at the very same words and come up with two totally different legal realities. So Rabbi Yossi reads that and says it's inclusive. The entire altar is fit for both types of offerings. Simple. But his opponent, Rabbi Yossai, son of Rabbi Yehuda, he pushes back. He asks, wait a minute, peace offerings don't need a special location, so why even mention them? His conclusion, the verse must actually be dividing the altar's function. Half for the burnt offerings in the north and half for the peace offerings in the south. And just like that, the mystery is solved. It wasn't a debate over physical space at all. It was a fight over textual meaning. This is the real core of the intellectual journey we're on here, understanding that the puzzle wasn't about the physical world, but about the world of ideas. But wait a second. The story isn't quite over. What about that first theory, the one about geography? Rabbi Zera, the same guy who poked holes in it, he's still bothered by something. He just can't let it go that a giant scholar like Rabbi Yohanan would make a claim like the whole altar is in the north without having some kind of source for it. It just doesn't sit right with him. So he basically asks, is it possible that this statement is correct and we just never learned it in any Mishnah? He can't let it go. He thinks a claim that big has to be anchored somewhere in the tradition, even if it's buried deep.
So his hunt begins. He went out, examined, and discovered, as the text says. And where does he find his clue? In a totally unexpected place. A text in the Tractate of Tamid, which is all about the incense arrangement on the altar. The proof he was looking for was hidden in a description of something that seems completely unrelated.
And this quote is the smoking gun. It says the wood was placed opposite the southwest corner, distanced from the corner northward by 4 cubits. Now think about that. These very specific directions, starting at a corner and moving north on the altar. They only make sense if the entire altar is already in the northern part of the courtyard. If it was straddling the line between north and south, these directions would be completely nonsensical. It's brilliant.
So in this amazing final twist, that first theory, the geographic one, it wasn't wrong after all. It just wasn't the explanation for the original dispute. It was its own independent tradition. And now, thanks to Rabbi Zera's detective work, it's been proven.
So let's just step back and look at what we uncovered. It's pretty amazing. We started with a legal puzzle about sacred space. We saw a simple theory get challenged and, it seemed, totally defeated. Then we found a much deeper solution, one rooted in how you read a text. And then, a final hunt for proof actually vindicated that original theory. It's just a perfect window into the rigorous, multi-layered way the Talmud thinks. It makes you wonder, right? How many other ancient secrets are just hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right person to ask the right question? What this whole thing shows is that sometimes the goal isn't just about finding the answer. It's about appreciating the beauty and the rigor of the search itself.